as we had to learn and as you are learning today. He was obliged to try over and over again, as you are doing. He was obliged to hold fast, as you are obliged to hold fast today, even with clenched fist and set teeth, and saying, I will succeed. I do know that Christ lives within me. We recognize that it was the Christ within which made Jesus what he was and is today, and that the same attainments are for all. In all this, we would in no way detract from Jesus, for we love him with a love unspeakable. We know he went through the perfect crucifixion of self, that he might lead his people to God, that he might show them the way out of sin, sickness, and trouble, that they might manifest the Father in them, that he might teach all that the same Father lives in all and loves all. None that follow Jesus' life and teaching closely can help but love him. He is our perfect elder brother. But if we sell our birthright, if we disregard or treat with contempt the beneficent laws of God, and by so doing turn our backs on the Father's house and wander into a far country, as did the prodigal son, of what avail is the peace and plenty, the abundance of warmth and cheer that abides within the house? When you are tired of the husks of life, when you are weary and homesick, with faltering steps you may retrace your way home to the Father's house. This may be done over the road of bitter experience, or by a joyful letting go of all material things. It does not matter how the understanding and knowledge is gained. You will eventually press on toward the mark of your high calling. With each step, you will grow strong and bolder, until you will no longer falter nor hesitate. You will look within for your illumination. Then, in your awakened consciousness, you will realize that home is here. It is the divine omnipresence in which we all live, move, and have our being. We breathe it with every breath. We live it with every heartbeat. Do not think you must come to us. Go into your own home, your church, your house of prayer, alone, anywhere you choose. Jesus, the great love master, can help you. All those that have passed and are receiving the highest teachings can help you, and are endeavoring to help you where you are now and at all times. How plainly we see Jesus in all the others, always ready to help those who call. You need but make the call, and they answer before the call is even finished. They stand and walk beside you every moment. What you must do is to raise your consciousness so that you can see and know that you walk beside them. Then you will not falter. They are holding out their hands and saying, "Come unto me, and I will give you the rest." This does not mean come after death. This means come now, just as you are. Raise your consciousness to our consciousness, and behold, you stand where we are tonight, above all mortal limitations, abundantly free. Peace, health, love, joy, and prosperity are here. These are the fruits of the Spirit, the gifts of God. If we look unto God, no harm can befall us, no evil can come nigh us. If we look to him wholly, We are healed of our infirmities in the transcendent name of the law, or Jesus. God is in the midst of you, child of infinite, immortal spirit. There is naught to make you tremble or despair, naught to make you fear. From the bosom of the Father you came. The breath of Almighty God created you as a living soul. Before Abraham was, you were. Beloved, now are we sons of God, joined heirs with Christ. The same power is in you that is in Jesus. This is called the mantle of the Spirit. With the right concept of this, it is found that there is no decay, no disease, no accident, no death, nothing that can take your life in any way. You can draw this mantle so closely around you that nothing can penetrate it, nothing can touch you. All the destructive agencies or forces ever created by man may be directed at you, yet you will come forth unharmed. If by any chance the outer form should be destroyed, it would immediately return as spiritual in the same form. This is an armor, better than any armor plate ever devised by man, and you can use it at all times without money and without price. You can stand forth as you are, the child of the living God. Jesus recognized this, and he could have saved himself the Calvary experience. Had he wished to use his power, his enemies could not have touched him. He saw there was a great spiritual change taking place in his body, and saw that if this was brought about among those he knew and loved without some outward change, a great many would not recognize the spiritual import, but would still cling to the personal. He knew that he had the power to overcome death, and he wished to show those that he loved that they had the same power. So he chose the Calvary way, the way they could see, and seeing they would believe. He also wished to show that he had so perfected his body that, should his enemies take his life, as they looked upon life, and place his body in the tomb and roll a great stone thereon, the last limitation that man could put upon it, still he, the true self, could roll away the stone and raise his real or spiritual body above all mortal limitations. Jesus could have taken his body and disappeared, but he chose to show that when the spiritual body is developed, no material accident or condition can destroy it, not even the taking of the life by another. After the crucifixion and ascension, his body was so highly developed spiritually that Jesus was obliged to raise the consciousness of those about him to a plane where they were able to see him, just as we are obliged to raise the consciousness of nearly all those about us tonight. When the women came to the tomb that morning and found the stone rolled away and the grave clothes laying by, even they did not know him until he had raised their consciousness to the plane where they could behold him. Then later, when two were on the road to Emmaus, Jesus drew near and conversed with them, yet they knew him not, until he broke bread with them. At that time their consciousness was raised to the plane where they could behold him. Just so, when he appeared to others, he even walked and talked with them, Yet they did not recognize him because their consciousness was not functioning on the plane where they could see him. The moment their consciousness did rise or function on the plane with his, they saw him. Then some perceived the spiritual import of actuality. They saw the deep meaning underlying it all. They knew. Yet with all this, a great many did not believe in him, because they had not yet attained a plane in consciousness where they could see or perceive the underlying spiritual meaning. Then the veil of mystery drawn by man's mortal perception was removed, and the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom. The consciousness was attained that death had been overcome, and that not only death, but all man-made mortal limitations could and would be overcome by coming up over them or raising our consciousness to the plane on which they can no longer be seen and therefore do not exist. If this consciousness is loved and cherished, it will come forth. This was the revelation that came to Jacob as he lay upon the hard stone of materiality. It was revealed to him that that which he gazed upon is brought forth, and his realization of this released him from his material bondage. It was this which prompted him to put spotted sticks in the cows' drinking water, thus causing them to bring forth spotted offspring. We can so definitely put forth our ideal into the formless that it is formed direct from the unformed, that which appears invisible to mortal consciousness. The drinking water of the cows but typifies the mirror through which the image held in mind is reflected to the soul, the innermost, and then conceived and brought forth. It is the same with the friends assembled here tonight. Only a few of the earnest ones perceive, and they go on, unfold, and do the real work of God. Others make a good beginning, but it soon requires too much exertion to surmount the first wall of materiality. They find it much easier to drift with the tide, and they drop out. We have all lived in the visible, mortal plane on this earth. In fact, we have never left the earth. We are now invisible only to those that are in mortal consciousness. To those that are on a higher plane of consciousness, we are always visible. Every seed placed in the soul becomes a conception and is given thought form in mind, later to be experienced in physical form. Ideas of perfection produce perfection, and the reverse is equally true. Just as the sun and the earth produce with equal willingness the mighty tree or the frailest flower, when their respective seeds are planted, so spirit and soul respond to man and that which he desires or that for which he has asked, believing he receives. Those that have passed from the visible through death are manifesting on the same psychic plane as when they left the body, for the mortal mind functions on the psychic plane. This is the cause of the great psychic realm which lies between the material or visible and the true spiritual, and through which all aspiring to the true spiritual must force their way before the spiritual is perceived. In order to perceive the spiritual, we must forge through the psychic directly to God. Death releases the soul only to the psychic plane, and it manifests on the same spiritual plane it was in when the soul was released from the body. The one so passing has not perceived that there is but one spirit, one mind, one body, and that all came forth from this one and must return to it. The spirit sent forth from this one and given a perfect body is as much a part of the one spirit as our arm is a part of our whole body, and is never separated from it any more than any member of our body is a separate part, but is one with the whole body, and must be fitly joined with it to make up the whole. So must all spirit or expression be fitly joined together to be complete and perfect. They shall all be gathered together in one place, means that we shall be conscious that we are one expression of the divinity and all from the same source, God. This is the atonement, the at-one-ment, knowing we are all created in the image and likeness of God, exactly like Him, an image through which He may and can express the ideal He has conceived for us. To be willing that God shall express perfectly through us the highest ideal He has conceived is the meaning of not my will, but thine, O God, be done. None can rise above mortal thoughts without doing the will of God, whether he does it consciously or unconsciously. Here the talk dropped for a moment, and one of our party asked about the relativity of matter. She went on to say, the real world is substance, the relativity of substance. Let us consider for a moment the 5 kingdoms, the mineral, the vegetable, the animal, the man, and the God kingdoms. We will begin at the mineral, the lowest. We find every particle of the mineral kingdom expressing the one life, the life of God. The disintegration or division of the particles of the mineral, combined with elements of air and water, has formed soil, every particle still retaining the original life, the life of God. This gives place to the vegetable kingdom, the next higher expression of God to come forth. And the vegetable, every part of which contains this one life, has taken up a part of this life from the mineral, has increased and multiplied it, and is expressing it one step higher toward the God kingdom. This gives place to the animal, the next higher expression of God. And the animal, every part of which contains the one life, has taken up a part of this life from the vegetable, has increased and multiplied it, and is expressing one step higher toward the God kingdom. This gives place to the man kingdom, the next higher expression of God. Then the man kingdom, every part of which contains the one life, has taken up a part of this one life from the animal kingdom and is expressing it one step higher, gives place to the God kingdom, the highest expression through man. When man has attained this kingdom, he recognizes that all have come forth from the one source, that all contain the one life, the life of God, and he has gained the mastery over all material things. But we need not pause here, for all is a progression. When he arrives here, he will find there are new worlds still to conquer. And now we come to the place where we recognize that all space or magnitude contains the one life, the life of God, that all is from the one source and substance. Then all substance becomes relative or related, does it not? Here the talk ended, the dinner was finished, and the room was cleared of tables and chairs. There followed a time of frolic and fun, including dance and song, with the music furnished by the invisible choir, and all enjoyed a good time together. The evening finally ended in music and song. The invisible choir became visible, walking among those assembled, and at times floated just above their heads. The final ending was one outburst of music, song, and laughter, with all participating. Taken all together, it was the most impressive scene that we ever witnessed. We were told that if we would become quiet, we could hear the music at all times. But it is only on an occasion like this that the chorus accompanies the music. We tried this a number of times afterward and found that we could hear the music. It was always low and beautifully sweet, but it never had the glad free ring of that one evening unless there were a number of masters congregated. We were told that this music is what has been called the angel choir. They call it the symphony of souls in accord. We stopped in this village 3 days, and during that time saw a great deal of our friends. The evening of the 3rd day, they bade us goodbye, and saying they would meet us at our winder quarters, disappeared.